I caught Stephanie outside kissing the wall. Is she okay? I'll be your story of hope. I no longer wet the bed. Hi guys! So welcome to today's video. It is going to be a long one, As soon as I mentioned that I was going to be evaluated, and then once I was diagnosed, a lot of people wanted to know what are my specific traits. We're going to talk about that today. And then tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern on Twitch, follow us at our Landing Crew 8. I will be doing a 2-hour live stream where you can come and ask tons of questions about my traits, because I know that I'm going to leave some things out just because it's so lengthy. And when you're 34 years old and then you suddenly realize that everything you've been doing your entire life that you thought is normal is not really normal, but it's an autistic trait. So I'm sure things are going to be left out. If you're new here, hi, my name is Stephanie. I have 6 children. 4 of the youngest are autistic, and that's kind of what prompted me to decide to get myself evaluated. We would love for you to hit the red subscribe button. I do a lot of autism and special need centric videos, but we also do share our family as well. So we would love for you to join our family over here. So I'm going to be sharing the story with you. I'm going to share a lot with you. Some things that are kind of embarrassing to me, some things that I've never shared with anyone else. Unless you were there and you knew me as a child, you wouldn't know these things. So I appreciate everyone being sensitive, just mindful of that I am doing this to help others. I decided not to be vague with these traits, not to just say, oh, I do this, and then not give an example of what that looks like with me. I'm going to be sharing things that some typical people do. I'm going to be sharing things that some neurodiverse with many different diagnoses do. Don't be the person that comments below and says, well, I don't like showers either, but I'm not autistic. Don't be ableist. We aren't doing that in 2021. In 2021, we're gonna love and accept everyone and not try to minimize their struggles. To be autistic, to get an autism diagnosis, it's not just a couple things. It's a whole bunch of things, guys. The list is like... As far as my results, I'm going to do a completely separate video where I'm going to go over all of my testing and kind of what led them to believe that I fit the DSM criteria for autism. But I will say this, just to get this out of the way, I didn't barely qualify for a diagnosis. I went through a lot of assessments. My mom went through an assessment for me. My husband went through an assessment for me. And my mom actually underreported. She didn't remember a lot of things. My mom worked a lot when I was a child. Even with my mom underreporting, I was like double the score that needed to be autistic. Every assessment they did, even if the assessment was for like mental illness or the assessment was for PTSD or ADHD, every single assessment further confirmed that I was autistic. They had absolutely no doubts about it. I've heard the theory that it's super easy to get an autism diagnosis, and it is not. I have talked to so many adults that have been evaluated, and because they were borderline, the doctor didn't want to give them that diagnosis. It is not easy to even get an evaluation as an adult, and it's even harder to get that diagnosis.
So moving on.
I'm going to briefly kind of tell the story of my childhood very, very quickly, and then we're going to go over the traits. I am a rambly person. I'm a wordy person. I don't know how to tell things in a short amount of time, and I'm sorry. So for those who hang out with me, thank you so much. So I have 2 older sisters. Out of the 3 of us, I was the one that had the most issues. I wasn't a good eater. I had some rash. Now I think it's psoriasis, but my mom took me to the hospital and it was a whole thing. I was a child that really, really struggled with gaining weight, even though I ate a lot of food. My mom said that I was just different. She said that Liam reminds her a lot of myself. So that's kind of how I was. I was just very, very happy and go lucky. I was okay playing by myself. She said that she would see me like playing in the room all the time with dolls by myself, and my sisters would be outside playing with friends, and I really didn't want to go outside. I was later to potty train, but not like abnormally late, but I did wet the bed until I was about 12 years old. And I'm sharing this because if there's anyone else watching this that feels bad about the fact that they're still wetting the bed or something like that, I want you to know that it's completely okay. Everyone stops wetting the bed at a different time, and that is fine. I'll be your story of hope. I no longer wet the bed. When my mom took me at age 4 to put me in preschool, I could talk, but you couldn't understand most of what I was saying. My sisters had to interpret for me. I don't know what testing was done, but it was determined that I needed to be in a special needs classroom with everyone else. I went to a typical kindergarten class, and then my mom felt like I wasn't ready for first grade, but she didn't want to hold me back in kindergarten. So at the time, Texas had what was called a span class. It was an in-between kindergarten and first grade class. There was also a lot of special needs students in there as well. I always had speech issues, which is kind of expected when you're a late talker. I just had issues like articulating certain sounds. When I was about 6 or 7, I started to stutter. Just out of the blue, I woke up one day and I just started stuttering. I was able to correct the sounds and issues and things like that, but my mom kept me in speech because she wanted to see if it could help me with my stuttering. It didn't, but with time, I learned how to hide it and be a covert stutterer. I will link my latest video about why I do not talk correctly in that. That's something I struggled my entire life. Also, when I was younger, I had a lot of issues with just sitting still. I was a very, very hyperactive child. So my mom took me to the doctor, and that's when they diagnosed me with ADD, ADHD, and they gave me Ritalin. I was on that, I don't even know how long, but a pretty lengthy point of a time. My mom finally took me off of it because it just made me sick. I was constantly complaining about it, and she said that I appeared to be like a zombie. I became pregnant at the age of 17. I was in my junior year of high school when I got pregnant with my oldest, Danielle. I got married when I was 17 as well. I had her when I was 18. So by the time I was 25, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I'm gonna do a completely separate video about that whole thing, but it was from like a 5 to 10 minute appointment. I was never thoroughly assessed or anything like that. So that is kind of the end of my story. So how I'm gonna do this is I'm going to break it up into childhood, adolescence, and adulthood. And I try to do my best to also separate it into like sensory and communication, things like that. But I'll be honest, this is just a hot mess list. As a child, I was just kind of strange. I would basically script movies and shows after I watched it. To the outside, it might look like I'm just pretend playing, but I wasn't. I was literally doing what I'd seen on movies or shows, to the point that I would pretend that someone by me or people by me were people of the show. It was most commonly like Disney movies and soap operas, because I watched soap operas a lot with my grandmother. I can't believe I'm gonna admit this to everyone. Oh my God. Basically, I would like kiss the wall when when you're supposed to like kiss each other, because a lot of these things were like Disney movies or soap operas, and that's what soap operas do, is they kiss each other. And so that's what I saw, so that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And one day when I was in first grade and my sister was in third grade, her teacher caught me kissing the wall because I was just walking along the wall talking to myself. And it's so crazy because for the longest time I never knew what was wrong with me. Like I never knew why I was so strange, and this explains so much. So she saw me kissing the wall. She didn't say anything to me. I didn't even know that I wasn't supposed to do it. It wasn't something I really did in secret until I got a little bit older and I had more social awareness. But first grade, my social awareness was like 0. And so I didn't even realize like it was an inappropriate thing to do. The third grade teacher of my sister went in the classroom and announced to the entire class, "Amy, I caught Stephanie outside kissing the wall. Is she okay?" My sister was so embarrassed. I embarrassed my sister a lot because she is completely typical. And these imaginary characters that I would script from these shows and movies really became my friend. I really didn't care if I had friends or I didn't. If I saw someone and I wanted to talk to them, I would. It's so hard to explain. It's not that I didn't want friends. I just didn't care that I didn't have them, because I could entertain myself very, very easily. I had this best friend stuffed animal that I got for Christmas. He was a moose. I thought he was a reindeer, but I named him Fred. I would just put roller skates on him and we would go outside and go roller skating together, like this little girl just roller skating down the road with her stuffed moose. There were times that I would also use my scripting from movies and things like that to respond in real life, and I would drive my sister nuts with this. Like she would get mad at me and I would quote the line from Aladdin, "I'm not a prize to be won."
I am not a prize to be won.
Drove her crazy. As far as my childhood, I did have one friend named Shannon, but I missed a lot of the social cues that should have sent me running for the hills, but we won't talk about that. Because of my inability to really see those social cues, I did get taken advantage of a lot. I always related better with people older than me. So growing up, I was always really close with my grandmother, and I would just sit in there and talk to her. Like as a young child, just talk to her, and it never bothered me. I never did it just because I was being nice. I literally just enjoyed her company. My other best friend was my dog. I had a basset hound named Leo. I always believed that he was just a human stuck in a dog's body. He was a great doggy though. I miss him. So my mom, bless her heart, she would let me get dressed for school. And I had no comprehension of matching at all. Like I would go to school in like an orange shirt, purple shorts, blue sock, yellow sock. And this was before mixed matching socks was cool. This was not a cool thing. I didn't know how to fix my hair. It was just a mess. And this is probably why I didn't have many friends, honestly. And then the few friends that were willing to like approach me and things like that, they never saved my friend because I didn't have those social cues. My elementary school life wasn't very exciting. I believe it was in third grade, second, third, or fourth grade, I got invited to a sleepover with a girl who I thought was my friend. It was going to be a sleepover with a bunch of people. I'd never been invited before, and I was so excited. So I go to the sleepover, and all night long, they tormented me. Like they put my underwear in the freezer. They wrote cuss words all over my back in like Sharpie. They wouldn't let me sleep. They would like have me fall asleep for like 30 minutes and then like wake me up. It literally all night long. I didn't realize that there was something wrong with this. I didn't go home and tell my parents, and not because I was like trying to protect my friends. I literally just went home and napped. Well, the girl's mom found out and called my mom, and my mom came over and she had to have a talk with me about like friends aren't supposed to treat you that way. I didn't understand what was wrong with what they did. But then my mom told me that that's not how friends are supposed to treat you. Friends are supposed to be nice to you. And so because my mom told me that going forward, I realized that friends are supposed to be nice to me. And that was kind of the saga of my childhood. I learned from my mistakes and from people telling me that's inappropriate, that's wrong, you're supposed to do it this way. And so going forward, I would do it that way every single time. So I was a really quick learner, and I was really good at copying other people. And I really feel like that's what helped me as I got older. I didn't know that it was rude to invite yourself over other people's houses. Like I thought it was a thing where you just asked to go over their house. Like it's still in my head. I don't understand it. I don't understand it, but I was told that that was rude. So I never did that again. And then one time I was with my sisters over at her friend's house. She's about to get married, and she was a younger girl, I think 19 or 20. This thought just popped in my head, and I said, "You're really pretty. How are you so pretty and your mom's not?" And in my head, I thought that that was okay. I was literally 12. I was old enough to know better that that wasn't something I should have said, but I didn't know better. I really didn't know what was wrong with it. The social cues that are innate in everyone, you're just naturally born with this idea. It baffles my mind because I've had to learn every step of the way, but like I didn't know that when you go over to someone's house, you're supposed to make up the bed. That's the polite thing to do because they've invited you into their home. That I understand now, but then I didn't. I was like 13 and I just didn't get it. And I told my sister that the people we were staying with could make up our bed. And she's like, "That's rude, Stephanie." And I just didn't understand why that was rude. But going forward now, when I'm at someone's house, I try to make sure I pick up after myself because I've been taught that's the socially acceptable thing. My biggest issue is that I never knew as a child if someone was my friend. So if someone said hi to me, I automatically thought that they were my friend, and I'm not exaggerating. So if anyone smiled, hi, anything, I thought that they were my friend, and then I would later find out that they weren't, and I was so confused because I didn't understand the social concept of friendship. I still don't. This is still a problem, but I'm getting better at it. But because of that, people could take advantage of me. They could say hi to me and I automatically think they're my friend. And then they're like, hey, do you want to do this paper for me? And I'm like, sure. I didn't see anything wrong with it because they were my friend. So I think it's needless to say, I was bullied for a really long time. I would say until like my second half of 8th grade. And I was starting to learn to pick up on cues a lot easier. Story time, I was homeschooled through a church school my 6th and 7th grade year. I went into public school my 8th grade year. The last public school grade I'd been in was 5th grade. A lot changes from 5th and 8th grade, a lot. Well, I didn't know that, and I didn't know anything about middle school or high school or anything like that. All I had to go off of were movies and shows. So I really thought movies and shows were that way. And I thought to get in with the cool crowd, you had to be mean to other people. And so there was this one instance that I'm really embarrassed about, but I'm going to share it because I feel like this happens. I was really mean to this kid because I thought it would get this group of girls to like me because that's what I saw in shows and movies. And so I was really mean to him, and they were completely appalled and didn't want to be my friend anymore. I didn't understand it. It's this weird concept of right or wrong that it's taken me a really long time to balance of just because you see it doesn't mean you should do it. I've always been imbalanced, clumsy. You guys know that. I've broken so many bones. I don't even know if that's an autism thing, but that's just something I've always been just very uncoordinated. And I've always had this thing, and I still do this, where I have to like repeat words and over, or I have a word and I have to say it. I remember being like a young kid and it's like little different phrases, just random weird phrases. It was almost like an obsessive compulsive thing. Like I just had to say it. A lot of people ask me what age that I started stemming at, and I really can't give an answer because I don't remember when I didn't stem. I always did it in some way or fashion. My stems that I still do now started when I was in middle school, but I had other stems earlier than that. I've talked about this a lot before, but I also had a lot of sensory issues. So aside from the stemming, my sister always thought it would be funny to like yell at me because it would make me cry. And I have this problem still. Like if someone yells at me, my automatic reaction is to just cry. I always hated showers. I still hate showers. I cannot stand the rain. I cannot stand water dripping on my face. My bath always has to be like hot tub hot. I do have texture issues, and this did start as a kid as well, like sweaters, turtlenecks I don't like, but I can stand it. It's not like where I won't wear it, but obviously if I have a choice, I'm not going to choose that. But I always thought that that was like everyone felt that way. Like no one liked wearing sweaters or turtlenecks or anything like that. It always made people feel that way, and they just did it because they were cold. I also always had sleep issues. I feel like the adolescence kind of bleeds into adulthood really, but I am going to talk about a few things that kind of stood out to me. So my adolescence is when I learned how to be social. I was able to start copying people and seeing people because I would see the popular girls at school, and I remember being like, I want to be liked. I want people to like me because that's what I saw. So I thought that was the gold standard. So I would see the popular girls like wave hi like that, and so I started doing that, and it worked because then I started to put off this really friendly persona, and I never became the popular girl ever, but I was well known. That was just kind of my high school experience. I didn't really have any friends. I didn't actually have a real friend, like a real friend, until I was 14. Once I got into high school, I got another friend named Sean. And so during my whole teenager existence, like I had 2 friends. That was it. So something else that I noticed is I would laugh when I'm nervous. I laugh a lot. Like I laugh as like a default. I don't know why. I hate it. I don't like my laugh, but it's something that I automatically do, and I can't help it. When I was in high school, once I could drive, every morning I would go to the park and swing. And I never knew why I did it, but it always started off my day really, really well, and it always just made me feel good. I just love swinging. I love the feeling. And now I'm understanding that it probably regulated me for the day, but it's really interesting that even as a teenager, I did things to help me cope without realizing that I was helping me cope. So almost all of my like dating relationships were online. In-person interactions just were really, really hard for me. So unless someone in person led the way, I just struggled with it a lot. I would meet them in person, but because of this and because of my inability to really understand and see people's intentions and understand those social concepts, I got myself into some really not so great situations. Every guy I would meet, I was convinced I was gonna marry them. Like that was gonna be my husband. It was just like this, I know I'm supposed to get older and get married and have kids, like, and go to school and college, and that's what I'm supposed to do. This guy must be a part of that plan. I related more with older people. So when I was in church, when I was about 12 to 16, we had a youth pastor and his wife who I was obsessed with, to not a normal point. Like I would call them, and there's some other things that could have went into why that was happening. Like guys I named a pet after them. This was a big question, like what are my special interests and things like that. And so my special interests now are way different than they were when I was a teenager, but I will tell you 2 stories of my hyper focusing on special interests. My first one was Titanic. Once the movie Titanic came out and I saw it, I was so obsessed with it. To a point, I lied to my parents and I told them I had this huge end of year project. Guys, it was like January. It was the only way I knew my parents would allow me to do all these things, like go buy me a poster board and get all these things, like a 12 to 15 page typed book report on Titanic. I did a huge poster board that I hung in my room. My other obsession was Buffy. Buffy the Vampire Slayer. If you've never watched that show, I'm so sorry. But I was really obsessed with it to a point that I made an entire website. Like I took web design in 9th grade so I could learn how to make a website. And I made this Buffy website that was like full, like you clicked on, it was crazy. When I was in school, like I would write the notes and then I would go home and I would rewrite all the notes. I was like in 3 honors classes, I was in the pep squad, but I was also redoing my notes meticulously. So I had a lot of traits that I didn't realize were OCD traits. I don't fit the criteria for OCD, but there's a lot of traits I had when I was younger and now that kind of fall more under the OCD umbrella, which also falls under the autism umbrella, because if you don't know, a lot of different traits fall under the autism umbrella. That's why you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm not autistic, I have OCD and I do that. I'm not autistic, I have ADHD and I do that, because autism encompasses a lot. But I would spend like hours rewriting these notes and color coordinating them with the highlighter. Now, this is something that I wasn't sure is even an autism thing. Maybe some of you autistic females can let me know, but I always struggled with how to do my hair and makeup really badly. With my sister, she just naturally learned. She was just naturally good at it. Like it wasn't amazing. It wasn't like Jeffree Star or anything like that, but she could apply makeup and it looked decent. I applied makeup and I looked horrible and I could never understand it. It wasn't until I was 22 and I had one of my friends at work kind of take me under her wing and show me some things. It wasn't until I was like 27, 28 that I got a lot better at it. Okay, it's time to talk about adulthood. This is probably the part that most people are kind of interested in, to kind of see like, how does autism affect you as an adult? Especially when you are a female that appears to most as typical. So the first thing is this: I don't get jokes. I don't get jokes. Lonnie, my husband, is a huge jokester. And this actually has caused, I don't want to say issues, but it's definitely made things a little bit challenging for us because he's a big jokester. So he likes telling jokes. And I'm not kidding. I always thought when people were laughing at his jokes, I thought that they were just being nice to him and that they really didn't find them funny. So half of our Patreon crew said that they are funny, that he's really funny. The other half said that they're so corny that they're funny. There are some jokes I don't get. I've always been that person. It takes me 5 minutes later and then I understand them. But even the ones that I understand, I just don't think they're funny. I also don't get sarcasm unless the person starts smiling. So I have to have some visual, some big visual facial expression to let me know that they're kidding. All the sensory things I talked about as a kid, I still have as an adult. Sometimes I'll have like this burst of energy and I would run from my car to the front of the store. And I have no idea what other people were thinking, like, why is this lady running into Walmart? So my biggest issue is conversation. My best friend Melissa, she kind of like let me know what it's like talking with me. And she didn't mean it rude. She just said that I have a really hard time following through with conversation, like continuing the conversation. She said that I say all the socially appropriate things to start a conversation, like how are you feeling, but once they answer that question I have, it doesn't continue. It's really hard for me to know what to say next and things like that. I've gotten really good about like saying the right thing and starting the conversations, but just not continuing them. I have this problem, and a lot of you guys have mentioned it. I like interrupt people, I talk over people. It's just hard for me. Like if I have something in my head that I really want to say, I just need to spit it out. It's like I just have to say it, and everything that person's saying, I'm not hearing a word they are saying because I have this thing that I just have to say. How I kind of mask with that is through time. I've learned to just talk to myself and be like, Stephanie, focus on what they're saying, focus on what they're saying, focus on what they're saying. They're going to stop eventually talking and you can say it. And it's really hard, but that's just how I function. The best way to explain masking is everything that comes 100% natural to everyone else, I have to work 100 times harder for just to appear that way. And I still don't appear 100% typical. So my special interests as an adult. My biggest special interest is obviously autism. It's just something that's just a passion of mine now because I have kids with it. I'm autistic. YouTube is also a big special interest of mine, and it's kind of what started me on the path. Is I started it and I really enjoyed it. A few of the other special interests is vampires. It's really weird, but like I love like vampire shows and movies and the supernatural kind of thing, and also climate change or global warming or whatever you prefer. That's kind of just something really, really interesting to me. It's hard for me to find items in like a busy background. Like someone can point to something and I will look in the direction they're pointing, but I won't be able to see what they're talking about. The report also said that I have a lot of characteristics of auditory processing disorder, and that is why I mispronounce a lot of things, because how I hear it isn't how it's being said, but that's how I'm saying it. So I've been told a lot that I say meal, I can't, meal like mill, deal, like dill, I can't say it right. I hear it as will, deal, like I hear it that way, so that's how I say it. And that made so much sense to me because I can never tell the difference. I think it sounds weird when I say deal, like I have to work so hard to say it. I'm like, you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is another thing. I don't know if this is a spectrum thing, but I can't walk in a straight line. When I'm walking side by side with someone, I always like go catty-cornered. I'm always too close to people. I invade their space a lot without realizing that that's what I'm doing. A little tidbit about me filming. Usually when I filmed a video while I'm getting ready, I go over it 4 or 5 times. Like I talk aloud like I'm talking on here. That's just kind of what I do so that I sound what I feel is socially appropriate. I don't do eye contact. Even Lonnie, like I'll do brief eye contact, but it still makes me feel really, really uncomfortable. I remember when we got married and they have you like stare into each other's eyes and like read the vows, it made my stomach turn. And I remember telling my friend about that and she's like, I don't know if you should have married him if you couldn't look him in the eyes. I've just learned to look at their eyebrows a lot. I look at eyebrows all the time. So that's why kids can appear to have good eye contact, but they really don't. And that's also why I don't believe that eye contact should ever be able to be used, because unless you've studied that child for a really excessively long time, you really don't know if they're looking at you in the eyes or they're just picking out a facial feature. Like who decided that we should look at each other in the eyes? Maybe we should start a new trend and look at each other in the nose, okay? So most of my friendships have been developed online. When I worked at a bank, I did have a couple friends, but it never went anywhere because they would invite me places and then I would back out of it all the time. Like I wanted to go, I wanted to be social. I just didn't know how. And I always felt like it was so much effort. I would sign up for things and I would cancel. And with time, my friends told me they're like, we just stopped inviting you places because we know you're not going to show up. So unless you caught me right there in the moment, or unless I had this like burst of let's go out and do things, I wouldn't do it. It was easier for me to find friends online. Also because I struggle with setting boundaries, it took me a really long time and the help of some friends before I really learned to really start setting boundaries and being like, this behavior is not okay. But because I just kind of accept things at face value, I just was like, oh, this is what friendship's supposed to be. Friendships are supposed to be this hard. Like, this is just part of it. And so I just kind of accepted that. It also allowed me to be taken advantage of a lot because I'm a people pleaser. I like to make people happy and I care what others think about me. I don't like admitting that, but I do. It's taken me such a long time to be surrounded by people that I know are gonna love me no matter what. Now, some of these issues aren't just autism. There are some other things in play. Please keep in mind that I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety and also complex PTSD as well. Because I've spent so long having online friendships, in-person friendships are really hard for me because I don't know the social concepts of them. It's gotten me into more situations of being taken advantage of. I'm going to use Emily as an example because I feel like she's a healthy friend. I literally am almost like depending on her to lead our friendship because I don't know what to do next. And I'm only sharing this because I know Emily will get a kick out of it. She thinks I'm hilarious. But when we first met and they came over, Emily led a lot of that. Emily and Lonnie did. And I was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I want to meet her. I want to be friends with her. I just don't know how to do this. And then she came over and then she was like, do you want to meet up again? And I was like, yeah, like that's great. And so I let her kind of lead it because I didn't know how. I didn't know what you were supposed to do. I didn't know what was the most appropriate time. I really wanted to be like, let's hang out next weekend. But I was like, no, Stephanie, you have to be socially acceptable. Let's do 2 weeks. I do these things that I think are socially acceptable. And sometimes that makes me seem kind of standoffish. So I have to be honest, like, hey, I'm not trying to be this way. In-person friendships are really hard, but I'm getting better with it. And even like my best friend, Melissa, like she is an online friendship, but like I literally feel like I've known her my entire life. Online friendships have a level of socializing that you don't necessarily have to do. And I'm always a person that I do better with texting because I can think about what I'm gonna say instead of just spouting it from my mouth. So as I said, some of these things are kind of OCD, like I don't like change and I'm kind of a control freak in that way. Someone can present me with something that is easier than what I've been doing for X amount of years. And I still resist it because it's different and I don't like change. So for example, I go to the grocery store to go grocery shopping. So many of you guys have said, Stephanie, you should do delivery. Stephanie, you should do the pickup, the curb pickup. And I'm like, I just can't, I have to go in the store and do it. Why? Because that's what I've always done. Yes, it would be easier. Yes, it would save me time. Yes, it would save my sanity, but I still do it the same way because that is what I do. Life throws changes at you all of the time. And automatically when a change is thrown at me, my automatic response is to reject it, to go against it and be like, no, I don't want to do this. Like that's wrong. Like we can't do it this way. I have to have time to process it first. Some people have asked if I still prefer to be alone, and I do. It's not that I don't enjoy other people's company. Like if I'm watching something or I'm doing something and Daniel's like, hey, do you want to watch a show? And I'm like, yeah. Or if I'm doing something, I'm like, man, I really like some company. I can go to Danielle or Lonnie and be like, do you want to watch a show or a movie or something like that? Like, it's not that I reject company, but it's also that I'm okay with my own company too. Back to kind of like I don't get jokes, I don't get sarcasm. Like when Lonnie is like teasing the kids, like it really bothers me because again, I'm that black and white thinking. Even if the kids are laughing, even if the kids say, it's fine, mom, like he's just joking. I play with my hair a lot. I talk with my hands a lot. And this is why. I learned from a young age, probably when I was in high school, that girls stereotypically talk with their hands a lot. They also play with their hair a lot. Now I can't stop it. It's just there. I'm sorry. It's so excessive and it's so over the top because it's not natural. Like it's not something I naturally do, but I can't help it. And it's the same with playing with my hair. My hair is also kind of like a stem, maybe, like just like something that kind of calms me down. I don't know. So sometimes what'll happen with like conversation with me is that sometimes I'll get going. I'll just go and go and go and go. And sometimes the conversation doesn't have to be two-sided. So that's probably why I do so good on live stream, because live streaming is a lot of just you talking. And I have worked on it. There are a few friends that I will just go on and on and on, and I really don't censor myself because I know they love me and accept me for me, but I also know not everyone's like that. And I strive really hard to be socially acceptable. So I'll have to be like, okay, Stephanie, don't send more than 2 messages, wait for their response, then you can send it again. And this is really how my brain works. And this is why I can come across as a typical girl, because I'm able to take the social constructs and just make them work. It's almost like I'm on manual. Like I have to manually do everything as everyone else is on automatic. So I've been told a lot that I talk loud, that I'm a loud talker. I don't realize how loud I sound. Like right now, I'm probably talking really loud, but it sounds normal to me. And not only can I like not hear like how loud I am, but I also can't hear my tone. So there are some times I might be rude, and I'm not trying to be rude, but that's kind of like how my tone comes out. I have a hard time also like reading people's facial expressions unless they're smiling. Like smiling and upset. So if you have like just a blank look on your face, I'm like, I also have a really hard time hiding my facial expressions. I thought everyone struggled with this. Last night I found out that people can hide what they're feeling on their face. Like they can feel like, but just be like, how does one do that? So these are some of the sensory things, and kind of goes into some OCD things. So basically I will have a lot of days, especially if my anxiety is really high, where like being touched is almost like painful. Like it literally just makes my stomach turn and I just can't do it. I've talked about that aspect with Lonnie. And guys, enough with the, you have 6 kids, how can you not want to be touched? Like, so I don't like loud music. Like if Lonnie turns on loud music, it's just like, bleh. But if I have the music on, I can blast it and it not be a problem. I also do this like skin picking thing. I have psoriasis and it's just bad. So as far as like eating, like I am the type that I like to just eat the same foods. Like I don't like trying new foods. I'm okay with just eating the same foods over and over. I do have some texture issues with a few things like watermelon, applesauce, fish. I love how watermelon tastes. I don't like eating it. Before we go into the other thing, I want to kind of go through and talk about all the OCD things and just kind of get them out of the way. So I have the skin picking, the nail biting. I am also very, very obsessive with my channel. So how I edit, it causes me a great deal of anxiety. I thought it caused everyone anxiety. I will edit down to like the 0.1 second or 0.01 second. It is so excessive. It's like anything with my thumbnails, my titles. I overthink everything down to the last detail that apparently other people don't. When Lonnie started editing for me for a little bit, because he stopped because I was a control freak, I asked him one day, I was like, doesn't that give you anxiety? He's like, no, it's fine. And I'm just like, how? How does it not? And that's one of the reasons why it was so hard for me to be Monday through Friday or daily, because other creators, they could just edit like normal. I don't know how, but they do it. This is something Melissa brought up to me, is that I don't really have an off switch. Like I will work myself into the ground. I will just keep going and going and going and going and going and going, which is an amazing thing if you're an entrepreneur, but not really, because you need to take time to rest. And I'm learning how to let go on certain things, but it's not just like work, like just everything in life. Like I just have that go and go and go mentality. I feel like on sit down videos is when I probably look the most typical. What you don't see is of course my rehearsing before I start, but I also have to stop every few minutes to either stem to regulate myself, or I have to stop to get my thoughts. It's me constantly rewording what I'm saying so it sounds better. And it's a lot of masking. After I film, I am so exhausted and it's so hard for me, and I feel in a mixed place. Like I feel like, yes, I should be able to be who I am, but I also feel like if I didn't do that, I don't know that I would be able to get the message across that I'm trying to get across. And I do feel like a lot of our videos help a lot of people because I'm able to explain it in a certain way, but I'm able to articulate it in a certain way as well. And it makes it for a very received message. And I want to explain this. Masking is basically imitating what you've seen, basically acting like you're neurotypical. And some people have said, well, I do that on social media. People act like a certain way. Like when I'm sad, I act like I'm happy. And in some way that's like a little bit of like a thin mask, I guess. But when you get off social media, you take that mask off. When you're autistic and you've grown up your entire life like this, It's a mask you don't take off. And the best way I can explain it is that sometimes I have to struggle to keep the mask on. I have to go through steps to be able to look a certain way. So basically when I walk into a room of people, I scan the room and I act like they're acting. It's taken me a really long time to like find myself, and I'm still on that journey of finding myself. I basically look to other people to act. So if I say something that I think is funny, I look to the person for approval. And I know if they're laughing, like they think that's funny too, like, oh, kind of thing. But if they're not laughing, I'm like, oh, I think I just offended them. So it's just really a lot of like looking to other people to set your social standard. And then sometimes when you're on social media, that's really hard because social media standard is so high. It's not a standard that 99% of people live by, but it's a standard that people show online. And it's so weird. As an autistic individual, trying to live up to that standard creates so much anxiety because I can never meet that standard. And then I feel like a crappy person because I haven't met that standard that I feel like everyone else is living, even though I'm starting to learn that no one else is living that. It's exhausting. So the biggest struggles I have are with executive functioning. So it's just like day-to-day tasks, cleaning, laundry. I mean, we all know those are those are two things I'm not great in, but also hygiene. It's something that I struggle with. I have to like make tasks for myself, and that's really, really hard. It's hard as a mom because I want my kids to not struggle like I do. So I have to implement these things that I don't naturally do, and that's hard. And I'm being very vulnerable. This is me being real. But those are things that I really, really struggle with. My biggest issue with cleaning is I get overwhelmed really easily. So if I have a room that's clean, I will keep it clean, keep it clean, keep it clean. But then the minute like something kind of goes out, it like causes me a lot of anxiety about it. Once it gets to a certain point, and it doesn't even have to be like a crazy point, just like a few things out of place, it overwhelms me because I'm like, oh, there's something there, 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 and there. In my head, it's hard to like process and layer that and be like, well, just walk over there, there, and there, and there, and pick it up. Like that seems easy to typical people. This seems like an easy fix, but it's not, because it literally makes my brain shut down. So then I just get a really big mess and I make a cleaning video. But that's the biggest struggle. It's hard to live this way and then feel like I'm not enough. Like everyone else could do a better job. And it's hard being on social media when everyone tells me how everyone else can do a better job. Like everything that I'm mentioning, it causes me debilitating anxiety. It's why I have anxiety, because I'm constantly trying to act this certain way that I don't understand. Like there are some things I do just because I've been told that it's what I'm supposed to do. I don't understand it. I don't get it. It makes no sense, but I know it's what everyone else does, and I want to fit in. I want people to love me. I want people to accept me, and I want to please people. So I do these things, and in return, my brain isn't comprehending it. I'm basically going against my natural instincts. I have a really hard time dealing with any emotions besides happiness or excitement. I understand happiness very well, guys. If my friend messages me and says XYZ happened and it's an exciting thing, I'm like, yes, go girl. Yeah, let's throw a party. But if they're like upset, I don't know how to process that. If they're crying, I'm like, do I hug them? Do they not want me to hug them? Do I say I'm sorry? Oh, like it makes me feel awkward. If they're mad, I'm like, do I get out of their way? Do I duck? So like with my meltdowns, I don't really have okay, I have had some meltdowns. I have had some meltdowns, and guys, this is why I don't share my kids' meltdowns, because I just think about my worst moments and I'm like, I would hate for that to be online. But it's very rare. It has to be like a lot. It doesn't happen very often, maybe like a few times a year. But my thing is I shut down. Like if it becomes too much, I just shut down. It sucks. Like I wish I could change that, but that's kind of like my response. And that is why I'm getting on medication to really tailor towards that anxiety, because it causes so many problems as far as just my day-to-day being a wife and mother. I don't have this problem as much anymore, but because I'm a people pleaser, when someone's upset with me and I know they're upset with me, like I want to fix it. Like I want them to talk to me, and even if they're like trying to like avoid me. When I was younger, like in my 20s, I would like blow up their phone, like with literally like 15 messages. When Lonnie and I would get into argument and he needed space, I just couldn't give him space. I'm like, he just can't walk away from me. And it's very unhealthy. Like if someone's upset with you, it's okay to give them space. So now I'm better with it and I'm okay with that space. I do still struggle with it sometimes, but what I've learned, giving tips for you guys out there, what I've learned is that when I know that someone needs space and I know it's bothering me, to distract myself, talk to someone, play a game, watch a show, just get my mind off of it and give them the time, because when they come back, it feels a million times better than if you're like forcing that confrontation. I care too much what other people think, as I said, and sometimes it can be to an obsessive point. And I want you guys to keep that in mind. Sometimes when people say ugly things to me on here, like I cannot stop thinking about it. Most times it's fine. 95% of the time I brush it off and I move on. But every now and then someone will say something and I can't stop obsessing about it. Specifically, like if I'm already just struggling with my mental health and things. So like, if you guys could be nice, that would be good. Most people have like the fight or flight. I have the freeze. When someone is like, say something rude to me in person or something, like I don't have that automatic like or leave, I just freeze. It's basically like I'm processing what happens. I have to process it and it takes me longer to process it. And I have a delayed emotional reaction. When we get news about the kids and I'm like vlogging and it seems like I'm super chill about it, usually the next day I have like some emotional breakdown about it. I also script things from others. So I will pick up phrases, and that's also why my vocabulary is so big. I kind of still use the scripting in a way. So if I have a friend that has a phrase or they say a certain word, then I just pick up that word. It's honestly why when I talk about things with the kids and stuff, I've gotten comments that I sound like a professional or a therapist, and it's because I'm basically adopting and scripting what the therapists are saying and their terminology and the way that they use things and stuff like that. And it's something I naturally just do. Can't help it. I feel like when you've spent your entire life copying, like that's been your way of survival, that's been your way of living, you don't have any other option. Last but not least, we are going to talk about my stimming. I'm not showing you guys my stimming. I'm going to actually show all of our stimmings in one video. I'm really nervous about it. I'm not ready to do that. Already this video is going out on leaps. I know it's not socially acceptable, so I know not to do it in public, so it's a little bit weird for me to like do it on camera. So I've talked about stimming before, and some people made the remark that they didn't think that you could stop stimming, like it was uncontrollable. And it's not. Like you can choose not to stem, but choosing not to stem when you need to stem, it can really cause a lot of issues, because stimming is how you're regulating your emotions and so forth. That's why when I'm doing a big video like this, I have to constantly stop to stem, because it regulates who I am. At night, I do this thing where I knead my feet into the bed like a cat, or I'll like rub my feet together, and I do it without even realizing I'm doing it. So that's a stem I don't notice I'm doing kind of thing. It's the same thing with like playing with my hair and talking with my hands. I have one where I rub my nose. I have another where I like pat my hands on my head. I also have one where I like kind of do this like movement with my hands together. So those are my main stems. I don't really have anything else. I am becoming more comfortable to stem in front of others. It's just a process. It's a process of accepting and loving who I am. And that's hard when you've spent your whole life feeling like you were wrong. And I never knew why I was wrong. I just always knew I was different. That is it. If you guys have any questions, please leave them below, because after this autism series is over, I'm going to do one final really big Q&A. I'm going to take the best questions, and it's going to be a really long Q&A, and hopefully it answers everyone's questions. The next video coming is my bipolar misdiagnosis story, and then after that I will go over my autism test results as much as I can. This was probably more than I was expecting to share. This is longer than I ever thought a video would be. Thank you guys for hanging out. If you hung out to the end, I hope this helped others. I am sure I'm leaving out a million a million things. So please feel free to join us tonight on live stream on Twitch, 9 p.m. Eastern. It will be for 2 hours and you guys can ask all kinds of questions. Twitch saves the stream, so if you can't make it, still go in that link and you can watch it. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to watch this long of a video and then a 2-hour stream, but if you want to, it's there for you. It's twitch.tv/our landing crew 8. You can sign up if you want to. You don't have to sign up to watch, but if you do want to sign up and subscribe, you can do so for free. If you have Amazon Prime, you just link it to your Twitch account and then you can subscribe. Editing this video is going to be a little bit crazy. I'm probably not going to be able to edit it like I normally would want to. We will see you guys later.
Where you move make me blind. You will always be there. There's no doubt in my mind. You will always be there. Heading out